Right now, this is Our Time in the Studio with Carolina Carreau. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. Let's get straight to the important news. 4 people were injured as a result of falling debris from Russian drones in the Poltava region. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Vitaly Diakovniks. According to him, the people sustained moderate injuries and several buildings were also damaged. 5 people were injured due to an attack by the Russian army on Shahed in the Kharkiv region. Among them is a 7-year-old child. According to the head of the regional administration, Ole Sinahubov, a Russian drone damaged a private house and several outbuildings. In Kharkiv, windows in apartment buildings in the Shevchenkivsky district were damaged by falling debris from a Russian drone. In addition, civilian cars were damaged. This was reported by Mayor Ihor Terkov. According to him, no people were injured. In Kherson and the region, 7 residents were injured as a result of attacks by Russian occupiers. According to the press service of the Regional Military Administration, they suffered blast injuries, concussions, and shrapnel wounds. Some of the wounded have been hospitalized. 1 woman received medical assistance at the scene. Port and transportation infrastructure facilities were damaged as a result of the overnight Russian attack on the Odesa region. According to Oleg Keeper, head of the Regional Military Administration, Russian occupiers attacked with strike drones. The strike hit a warehouse for dry goods and road containers. Windows were blown out in administrative buildings, but no people were injured. Ukrainian defense forces shot down and suppressed 127 Russian drones on the night of March 3rd. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, in total, the Russians attacked with 136 strike drones. These included Shahed, Gerber, and Talmaz drones. They were launched from Kursk, Primorsk-Akhtarsk, and Vardayskaya. There were confirmed strikes by 5 attack drones in 3 locations, as well as the crash of downed drones in 3 other locations. In February, Ukrainian interceptor drones shot down more than 70% of Shaheds over Kyiv and the surrounding region. This was stated by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrskyi. He emphasized that interceptor drones play a key role in repelling attacks by Russian strike UAVs.
Over the past month, our interceptor drones have carried out about 6,300 sorties. Having destroyed more than 1,500 Russian UAVs of various types, we are searching for and finding answers to the new tactics of using Shaheds at extremely low altitudes. We are working with manufacturers to improve the effectiveness of various models of interceptor drones. We continue to form and train UAV crews. We are equipping air defense divisions with unmanned systems. Alexander Syrskyi, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Atesh partisans carried out sabotage on the railway and temporarily occupied Luhansk. This was the only stable logistics route for the Russians from Russia to the front line. This was reported by the movement. According to their information, 2 relay cabinets in different parts of the city were disabled, which caused a disruption in train traffic control. This rail line connects Russia with Luhansk, goes through Debaltseve, passes through Pasna, and leads toward the Pokrovsky direction. As a result of the sabotage, train movement was stopped in certain sections. Some of the trains were delayed, which, according to the partisans, complicated the supply of fuel and ammunition for the Russian army. In the past 24 hours, 152 combat clashes were recorded on the front line. The highest enemy activity was observed in the Hoyaypol direction, with 40 attacks. In the Pokrovsky area, Ukrainian defenders repelled 23 assaults. There were 13 attacks in the Slovyansk direction, and in the Kostiantynivka directions, and 8 in the Lyman area. There were also several attempts by the Russian army to break through on the southern Slobozhansky, Oleksandrivka, and Arikiv sections of the front. In 4 years of full-scale war, drones have completely changed the situation on the battlefield. Currently, the Ukrainian armed forces have thousands of drones of various types and modifications in service. One of them is the Leleka reconnaissance drone. This UAV has been modified multiple times. One of the latest versions was delivered to the soldiers of the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade, and our correspondent, Dmytro Hlushko, saw how the tests were conducted.
The Ukrainian Leleka drone has been in service with the Ukrainian Army since 2021. During this time, it has been upgraded several times. One of the latest versions of the drone was received by the soldiers of the 30th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. They've been flying similar UAVs for years, and now they have to test the updated version.
The plane is balanced using the battery. That is, the battery is shifted forward or backward to eliminate the angle according to the current wind strength.
After installing the battery and entering all the flight parameters into the drone system, the operators move on to the final stage before launch, checking the mechanical components.
Right now, I'm checking the plane's functionality, how the ailerons work, how the stabilization modes and the automatic mode function. I'm checking the engine operation from the propeller, plus we just checked the engine's operation, listening for any unusual noises. The operator also checks the voltage output to see if the engine's running normally or not. The person holding the plane also checks whether they can feel the thrust.
After preparing the control systems, the drone is taken to the launch line, the bungee cord for acceleration is secured, and it's launched into the sky.
Pilot, what are you doing? The pilot sets the final parameters and adjusts specific settings. This is so the plane follows the route that was planned in advance. My job as the operator is to check the camera's operation, how it works, or if there are any issues controlling it. Right now, I see that everything's working well.
While the drone is over the positions of Russian occupiers or approaching them, there's always a risk that the enemy will spot it and try to shoot it down. Most often, the Russians use FPV drones for this.
To counter the destruction of our equipment, we try to fly at an altitude that's out of reach for FPV interceptors. And we work, so to speak, at a distance, using zoom so we don't get shot down.
During test flights, the pilots simulate patrolling in combat conditions.
Sometimes there aren't any specifically designated targets or points for further reconnaissance. We only carry out patrols. By the way, patrolling sometimes yields pretty good results. When the enemy sees a drone in the sky, their plans fall apart. Often, they don't make the moves they had planned.
Hard landings aren't a problem for this drone. The pilots say that the Leleka is one of the toughest UAVs out there.
After the manufacturer updated it, the drone works perfectly. No complaints at all. It completed its mission and successfully returned to its starting position.
A Ukrainian UAV, the Leleka, can stay airborne for up to 4 hours and fly up to 50 kilometers from its launch point. It can perform a variety of tasks, from mapping terrain to conducting reconnaissance behind enemy lines. Dmytro Hlushko from Donetsk region for Freedom TV channel.
The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, was attacked by 2 Iranian drones. A fire broke out. Reuters reports this, citing the Saudi Arabian Ministry of Defense. According to the ministry, a fire broke out on the diplomatic mission's grounds, but at the time of the strike, the building was empty and there were no casualties. U.S. President Donald Trump responded to Iran's attack on the American embassy in the capital of Saudi Arabia. According to Trump, the U.S. will announce retaliatory measures in the near future. He emphasized that Washington's response would be decisive. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department has urged Americans to leave 14 Middle Eastern countries due to the threat of further escalation. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the most devastating strikes against Iran are still ahead. Speaking on Fox News, he stressed that the operation will continue until the stated objectives are achieved. And according to him, Washington intends to finish the campaign it started, but it's still hard to predict how long that will take.
I'm not going to reveal the details of our tactical efforts, but the strongest strikes from the U.S. military are still ahead. The next phase will be even more devastating for Iran than what we've seen so far. The operation will continue until there are no troops left, until the Pentagon achieves its objectives. And Washington's goals are to destroy Iran's ballistic missile capabilities and its ability to produce them, as well as to eliminate the threat their fleet poses to global shipping. The world will be a safer place when we finish this operation.
During negotiations with the Americans, Iran boasted that it could build 11 nuclear bombs. This was stated on Fox News by the U.S. President's Special Representative Steve Witkoff. According to him, even during the first round of consultations, the Iranian side declared that Iran had enough enriched uranium to create nuclear bombs. In addition, Tehran insisted on its right to enrich uranium. During the negotiations, the U.S. tried to get Iran to abandon its nuclear program and to limit its military capabilities. However, by the second round, it became clear that no agreements would be reached.
At that first meeting, both Iranian negotiators told us directly and without any hesitation that they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium at their disposal, and that they knew it was enough to make 11 nuclear bombs. We responded that the president believes we have an inherent right to stop you at the root. We went there and tried to make a fair deal with them, but it was absolutely clear that this would be impossible. Probably by the end of the second meeting already, but we went back for a third meeting to make one last attempt. They wanted us to report positive results, but that meeting was not positive. Steve Witkoff, special representative of the U.S. president, on the air.
France will send missile systems with anti-drone technology to Cyprus, and a frigate after the drone attacks on the British airbase on the island. This was reported by Cypriot media. The president of Cyprus requested Emmanuel Macron's assistance during a phone call. He also asked German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to send a frigate to the island, and Germany agreed. Let me remind you, the day before, the UK Ministry of Defense confirmed that the Royal Air Force Base in Cyprus was attacked by an Iranian drone. Denmark and France have signed an agreement on strategic nuclear deterrence. This was announced by Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. According to her, strengthening cooperation will enhance Europe's deterrence potential amid the expected increase in military threats from Russia. Let me remind you, just the other day, French President Emmanuel Macron announced that Paris will expand its nuclear arsenal and strengthen its deterrence capabilities through cooperation with European partners. Starting in June of this year, Finland will stop accepting Russian passports without biometric data. Finland's foreign ministry reported this. Exceptions apply to minors or those who got residency before June 1st this year. Other EU countries previously introduced similar measures. Recall that in September 2022, the EU suspended the simplified visa regime with Russia, and Finland, the Baltic states, the Czech Republic, and Poland banned Russian tourists. The president of Ukraine hopes that the U.S. attack on Iran will not affect the trilateral negotiations with Russia, and that the next round will take place on March 5th or 6th. Vladimir Zelenskyy said this in an interview with the Italian publication Corriere della Sera. The president would prefer for this meeting to take place again in Geneva or in any other European city. Zelenskyy also added that Ukraine is hoping for new prisoner exchanges.
No one has postponed the next trilateral meeting with the Americans, even after the attack on Iran. That's why I believe it could take place on March 5th or 6th, as planned. Maybe it won't be held in Abu Dhabi. I would prefer Geneva or at the very least somewhere in Europe, because the war is happening on our continent. If Russia needs a neutral location, Austria, the Vatican, or Turkey would be suitable. We are also hoping for new prisoner exchanges.
Let me remind you, earlier during a conversation with the media, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated that due to the fighting in the Middle East, the Ukrainian side cannot confirm Abu Dhabi as the location for consultations with the U.S. and Russia. They were planned for the period from March 5th to 8th. At the same time, Zelenskyy said that no one has canceled the meeting. According to the president, negotiations must continue, and their outcome is important for Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Russian side stated that the previously planned trilateral meeting in Abu Dhabi is now impossible. And according to Peskov, the Kremlin does not see any clarity regarding the timing or location of new peace talks. In turn, European Commission spokesperson Anita Hipper said at a briefing in Brussels that Russia's postponement of yet another negotiation date with Ukraine shows that Moscow does not want peace.
The assessment of the location shouldn't be used as an excuse. And now we see that Russia is using any excuse to drag out the process and continue its attacks against innocent people in Ukraine. But our goal remains unchanged. We firmly stand with Ukraine and are working to achieve peace.
The president of Ukraine stated that the U.S. is ready to sign security guarantees for Ukraine, but only in the context of an agreement with the Russians. In an interview with Carrera by De Losera, Volodymyr Zelenskyy noted that he does not agree with this, and the president also has a negative view of Russia's demand for the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the Donetsk region. He added that Ukraine remains committed to the 20-point plan and the issue of control over its own territories. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte called on allies not to forget about supporting Ukraine amid the escalation in the Middle East. He stated this in an interview with ARD television channel. Rutte emphasized that the alliance is not participating in U.S. and Israeli operations against Iran, but noted that European allies can provide logistical support. According to him, such support is already being provided. The United Kingdom. The Secretary General emphasized that Russia's war against Ukraine must remain at the center of attention. Rutte also expressed confidence that the operation against Iran would not drain the U.S.'s air defense system stockpiles. He rejected the possibility of the conflict spreading to alliance countries' territory.